to the stage with her rendition of White Cat, Jen Ward.
There was once a young boy who on a journey back to his home strayed away from the correct path and lost himself in a deep, dark wood where the trees were as crooked as old men. Tired out from walking all day, he lay down and closed his eyes, and when he awoke, it was to find a rather large bear nosing about in his belongings. At first the boy was much frightened, but he soon found that it was a very tame and rather helpful bear, for it led him to the edge of the wood where he could see a tiny light, and as he walked towards it, he found it was coming from a small turf hut. He knocked on the door, and it was opened by two women of incredibly small stature, and they welcomed him in and gave him some food, and then they informed him that for that night he must share with them the only room in the house. And they all settled down, but only to be woken again by the striking of the clock at midnight. The two little women sprang out of bed and pulled on white caps. And the first little woman said, "Here's off!" and the second woman, "Here's after!" And the boy, who was too afraid to stay alone in the turf hut by himself, reached for the third white cap at the head of the bed, pulled it on and repeated, "Here's after!" He was immediately transported to the fairy ring outside the turf hut, where the little women were singing and dancing. The first little woman then said, "Here's off to a gentleman's house," and the other two repeated, "Here's after." They next found themselves at the top of a tall chimney. The first little woman said, "Down the chimney then," and the other two repeated in the same formula. They went first to the kitchen and then to the cellar, where the little women began sampling bottles of wine to take back with them. They opened one and gave it to the boy, which he drank greedily and soon became intoxicated, so that he fell unconscious. And when he came around, he found that the two little women had left without him. And when he was discovered by the servants, he was taken before the master of the mansion, and as he could give no satisfactory account of himself, he was condemned to be hung until he was dead. On the morning of the execution, the boy was standing up on the scaffold, and he could see, coming through the crowd, a little woman wearing a white cap and carrying a similar one. She asked the judge if the boy may be hung in it, and as the judge saw no problem in this, he put it on the boy's head. The little woman quickly said, "Here's off," and the boy gasped, "Here's after." He was then taken back to the turf hut, and the fairy explained to him that she had been very displeased by his taking of the white cap, and in future, if befriended by fairies, should not take liberties with their property. This the boy faithfully promised, and after a good meal was allowed to depart for his home. Thank you.